Cool. So this document should be available to everyone on the Leap Academic portal as well, right? So we've just got, again, we've deleted everything that wasn't relevant. We've got the front wing, we've got the wheel, suspension components, and we've also got the chassis as well. How is it on your end, by the way? Is it a little bit laggy, Tim?
Yeah, it jumps around a little bit when you rotate, but it's mostly not too bad.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll make sure to kind of slow everything down. It's again, I'm recording everything on my screen as well, so I'll make sure to kind of send that out to everyone afterwards. Awesome. So, for reference, so this is a geometry that I created specifically for CFD as well, because we didn't have anything, and the CAD that we had was just way too dirty for me to actually use. So before we do anything, before we create a domain, we're going to go into the repair tab, at the top. In my particular case, I've gone through, you can see on the left-hand side, I've got all solids, right? So I've got the structure tree on the left-hand side. And I've gone through and actually named everything as well. So I'm not going to need to stitch or remove any gaps or fill in any missing faces. If you did have a surface, you'll see that come up. It'll actually say surface. You may need to do that. And one of the things I might need to do is say fix my split edges. So I'll go through pretty much from the left-hand side. I'll normally go, so click on the split edges. I can see here there's a thing saying 13 split edges found. Click on the point to simplify, or we can just fix them all up by using the complete button. So if I select that, on the bottom you can see that it was just loading, and I can see on the right hand side there's fixed 11 areas. So afterwards I can go through and individually select these buttons in order to tighten the tolerance. I've also got on the left-hand side some options here if I wanted to increase the tolerances even more. So that's not really going to be a big issue, so I'm just going to escape out of it. It's again, so if I've got any more extra edges, you can see we've got a couple of extra edges that have come out. So I'm just, again, instead of going through them individually, I'm just going to click the tick button, and you can see that it's resolved all of them. Awesome. I don't really have any need to fix any curves. Not really going to need to merge any faces. This is an important one to fix any small faces. Right, so on the left-hand side, we can see that we've got a maximum area, or we've got a sliver face area as well. In this particular case, you can see if I rotate the model over, we've just got a really small face that if I click on manually, it should close itself up. Right. Again, if I need to simplify anything, so I've got a couple of things I can simplify there. I haven't found it to be a big issue, so I'm just going to leave them. And again, inexact edges. So these are all things, by the way, that you personally may see, but you guys might not see, sorry, but the solver, the geometry modeler, and the mesher will definitely pick up. So it's important to go back and make sure you fix them all, right? And that's pretty much it for the moment. So I've gone through my whole repair tab. And now what I'll do is I'll go into the prepare tab at the top. So you can see I've got this enclosure function here. I've got a couple other functions I can look at and use. Again, there's an interference tab. I can delete rounds, faces, remove short edges. So if we select on that, we can straight away see there are a couple of short edges that have been picked up, right? And I can increase the max length if I wanted to. For this particular case, I'm just going to tick complete. Awesome. It's again, if I need to detect anything, I can do it here as well. All right. So as we were previously talking about, we're just going to set up a model that's parallel to this car. So it's just going to be going in front. And due to that, we can take care of the fact that this whole model is symmetrical. So we can actually cut the model in half and then run a half car model. So I'm going to go over to my design tab at the top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a plane down the YZ axis, and I'm actually going to split my body down the middle, and I'm going to delete one half of my body, right? So in order to create a plane down that axis, I'm just going to control select Y and Z, hit my plane button. Awesome, and I've created my plane there. On the left hand side, if I just minimize all these, you can see there's a plane that's been created. You can see exactly where it's highlighted and where it splits down. Now what I'll do is that I'll split the body. So again, I've got a split body function here. It's telling me on the top left or even on the bottom left that I need to click the target object first. So the first one I'm going to select is the chassis itself. And then it's asking me to select a face, plane, or edge. So on the left-hand side, on the Structures tab, I'm just going to select that plane. And you can see it's cut in half. If I have a look at my chassis, I can see I've got two bodies now. And it's also allowing me to remove a region. So I'm going to select the left-hand side. I'm going to click it, and I can remove it straight away. All right. So let's have a look at this wheel over here as well. So I'm going to delete that in a different way. So I've got the suspension. If I highlight one of the bodies on the left-hand side, you can see that they highlight in the geometry plane as well. So I can see I've got one highlight there, and if I just if I go right click, I can delete it. Right. Now this top A arm, if I want, instead of clicking it, you can see as soon as I highlight over it on the left-hand side, the structure tree lights up as well. But what I can do is I can triple click it. You can see the whole body lights up. I can see on the bottom right-hand side, I've got a selection filter, and it's telling me one body is created. And instead of going right-click delete, I'm just going to hit the delete key on my keyboard. And it's super easy to delete all of that as well. Another way to do it is I'm going to select this whole wheel. So if I actually create a box select from the bottom right to the top left, right, I'll select the whole body, and you can see I've selected two faces here as well. So I'm just going to click out of that and redo that. I've selected two bodies now, and I'm just going to hit delete. All right, awesome. So I'm just cleaning up a model as I'm going. Again, I don't actually need this. I'm just going to triple click, hit delete, and I've still got the wing, which I haven't cut up. Right? If I triple clicked on that, I can see the whole body lights up. So it's again, I'm going to go split body, select this. I've got my plane, and I'm going to remove that. I'm going to escape out of it. I'm going to triple click this, triple click the wing and the end plate. I can see on the bottom right, I've got three bodies created, and I'm going to delete that as well. All right. So now I've got my geometry prepared for me, and I'm going to create my enclosure. Right. So I'm going to go to Prepare tab. I'm going to select Enclosure. I'm going to select all the bodies, and I've got an enclosure that's automatically created for me. Now on the left-hand side, you can see that I've got some options. I'm not going to make it symmetrical, right? So you can see I've got a lot more tabs that come out. Now the very first one is just the inlet dimension. So it's again the length of the car is around 3 meters. So I just try to make sure if I'm making any dimensions, I make it as dimensionless as possible, almost. So I'm just gonna bring it 3 meters in front. I'm gonna hit tab. I can see it goes over to my next one. Now I actually want to cut this in half, so I'm just gonna leave that as is, and I'll cut it manually. Again, so the width, 3 meters on top. Right, I've got the height. I'm just going to make the height 3 meters as well. Now, yep. So beneath the car as well, I'm going to leave that as is, and I'll cut it manually with another plane. And behind, I'm just going to make this 9 meters. So I can see I've created almost all my domain, and I'm just going to tick the tick button to complete it. Awesome. What I'm going to do as well is that I'm going to select all these buttons, all these geometries on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to right-click and suppress for physics. This will mean later on when I'm bringing the geometry back in into my solver, I'm just going to bring in the actual enclosure and the bodies of influence which I'll create. I'm not going to actually bring in the bodies itself because I don't actually need them. And if I unselect these buttons, they're going to hide them as well. So awesome. So before I do that though, I'm just going to hide everything. I'm going to show my chassis and my wheels, because what I'd like to do is create a plane down the middle. So it's again, I'm going to select that face, design, hit the plane function. It's going to create a plane for me, right? And it's again, I want to create something around the wheels as well. So I'm going to select these two axes, create a plane, and I'm just going to orientate myself. and then if I hit the move function, this will allow me to move the plane up or down, right? Now I'm just going to go back, and instead of moving it up or down using the triad system, I'm just going to give it a value. So I'm going to type in -5, which is going to bring the whole plane up by 5 mil. Awesome. Now that I've created my 2 reference planes, I'm just going to get rid of everything. I've got my enclosure here and my 2 planes, and I'm going to cut my geometry up against that plane. So it's again split body, select the plane, remove that. Now, instead of exiting out of it, if I hit Control, I can select the target body again. I can select my new plane, and I can remove what's underneath. So I'll do that again. I remove underneath. All right, I'm just going to hit Escape to escape out of it, and I don't actually need these planes anymore, so I'm going to hit Delete. Awesome. All right, so I can see a couple of new guys that have come in as well. We'll, as we were just talking about, we'll record everything and we'll send it out to you so you don't miss anything. All right, so I'm just going to have a look at my plane as well. So again, so I'm just going to hide these faces. So in 19, we've got the function in Space Claim to highlight surfaces, right-click, and hide the faces. Now, we've got this sharp angle here between the wheel and the ground, right? So that sharp angle is going to create skewed elements. So what we're actually going to do, we're just going to zoom out a little bit, just focus back in. So what I want to do is select this line here, right? If I double click on the line, sorry, I'm going to select that line again, double click on the line, it'll auto select all those edges, and I'm going to press the pull function. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to create a round, so I'm going to create a fillet. And if I pull on that, it'll create a fillet for me, right? That's way too big. I'm just going to go back, so Control Z. And instead, I'm going to go spacebar. You can see I've got a prompt that comes up, and I'm going to give it a 4 mil radius, right? So you can see what you've done there. And now I've almost got my enclosure ready. Right, so I've got the enclosure, there's no solid bodies in there, it's just a fluid domain. It's taken everything out. You can see here I've got radiuses around areas that I think will cause me skewed elements, right? But the other thing that I need to do is have 2 bodies of influence. So I need a near body of influence and a far body of influence, right? So I'm going to, at the structures tree on the top left-hand side, I'm going to go right-click. I'm going to ask for a new component. I'm going to call it BOI, body of influence, far. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a rectangle. So I'm going to orientate myself around. I'm going to select the plane. You can see that the BOI-far is bold, so it means that component is currently active. And I'm going to create my rectangle here. I'm just going to orientate myself using the triad on the bottom left. Right. I'm just going to click bottom left here and create a rectangle for me. And I'm going to exit back out of it to 3D mode. I'm just going to orientate myself around. I'm going to select this surface, right? I've got the pull function that's already been selected for me, and I'm going to pull it to the left-hand side. Again, I'm just going to triple click, and you can see I've got this pop-up that comes up. I'm just going to make it transparent. Cool. So now I've got this domain that I've created for myself. Now, the main part of this domain is just to capture the wake region. Now, you might not quite understand how big the wake region is initially, so just create the body of influence, check your post-processing results, and you can go back and extend it if you need to. I've extended it a little bit far behind to capture the wake. Got a little bit in front as well. There's no rear wing, so that's not a big issue, and I've brought it a little bit in front as well. And I can also see I've brought it a bit wider than the car because I know I'm going to have some sort of vortice that comes off the wing and the wheel as well. So I'd like to be capturing that. Right. Now I'm going to exit this and I'm going to create my second body of influence, and I'm going to create that around the front wing. Again, right click, new component, BOI-near. I'm going to select that surface again. I'm going to go R for rectangle. orientate myself. This is just going to be around the front wing, right? So I might want to select it around that area. I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to pull this out. Cool. Just going to hit escape. I'm going to make this transparent. Now, if I'm going to make this a finer body, I don't actually need for the body to be finer around the chassis there. So I'm just going to pull that bit in. I'm just going to look on the top until it's around that end plate. Awesome. I can see I've got a little bit left over there as well. So if I have a 40C coming out on the right hand side, it's going to capture that. And if I look underneath as well, I can see it's on the bottom. Brilliant. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create some name selections so I can do all of that within Space Claim. So first off, I'm just going to go right click, show all, and I'm going to unselect the bodies that I'm not interested in. Right, I just need the bodies on that. I'm going to right click on the enclosure and activate that component. Right, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into my groups tab. I'm going to select a face. Right, I'm going to hit create group. You can see I've got a group created on the left hand side, so this is similar to a name selection. So I'm going to highlight that, right click, rename, and call that inlet. Now I've got a symmetry boundary condition here. You can see when I highlight over something, you can read the description, and there's also a keyboard shortcut for Control G. So I'm just going to hit Control G. Again, groups created. I'm going to select that. Instead of right clicking and pressing rename, I'm going to hit F2. And I'm going to give it symmetry. And then I'm going to do the same for these two components here. Again, Control G, F2, wall. I'm going to give the ground a different boundary condition. And I've got my outlet all the way out here. Awesome. And what I might want to do, I'll definitely want to do later on, but I'll do it now, is that again, I'll just unselect these, I'll select these faces and hide them, right? Is that I'd like to select the wings because I'd like to do some sort of sizing just on the wings later on and also the wheels. So I'll hide the bottom face as well, right? I'm just going to look up top. Cool. So I'm going to just angle myself in. Now with the box select tool, I can do two versions of it, right? If I go from the bottom left to the top right, it will start to select the whole surface within that box, right? But if I go from the top left to the bottom right, it's only going to select surfaces that totally encompass that box. You can see the wings aren't selected in this case, but the end plate is, right? So I'm just going to have a look at that wing. Again, Control G. What I'm also going to do is have a look at this wheel. All right, so I'm just going to go box select that whole wheel. Now I don't want the stand, so it hasn't picked that up. Brilliant. And I'm just going to go Control G again. And just in my experience, I've found that because I go quite coarse around the chassis, the rods start to lose their definition. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select these rods. And I'm also going to select the roll hoop as well. I've got a small face here, which, whoop, that's selected everything for me again. I'm just going to go up, I'll redo the selection. Again, Control G. On the bottom, on the left-hand side, you can see as well, as soon as I touch select group 1, the actual name, the faces light up. So I'm just going to hit F2. Front wing. I've got group 2, which I'm going to go hit F2 again. Oops. F2, wheel, and F2, rod. Brilliant. So I'm going to go back to my structures tree. I'm just going to activate this. Right click, sorry, activate again. I'm just going to suppress these components because I don't need them. And again, I've got my, if I go show all, I've got my enclosure that I've created, right? I've got my inlet that's far enough such that the inlet boundary profile is not going to be affected by the stagnation region. I've got my outlet far enough that the wake region isn't going to cause issues with convergence. And I don't think that my height or my width is going to affect the flow at all. I've also got two bodies of influence, right? I've got a body of influence around the far field. So that's going to pick up the general recirculation region of the car. But I've also got a body of influence around the front wing to pick up the vortex structure coming off that. And what I might also do is I might go back later on and also include a body of influence around the front wheel as well, right? So that would be my geometry created. Again, I've created this in 19, but the CAD file on the LEAP academic portal comes in as a step file, so you guys can go through this whole process, right? So I'm just going to exit that. I'm not going to save it in this particular case. Now so I've been talking for around 45 minutes. So if we go back to the front wing, the CFD for FSA webinar, right? Let's come up. Yep, so there I've got the CFD webinar. So if I'll log in from the start actually, just if anyone doesn't know. So if I go to uni@leapbost.com.au, I can go top right, log in. On the right hand side, if you haven't created an account, you can create one on the right hand side. On the left hand side, you can just log in if you already have. All right, on the top right hand corner, we've got training courses, and we want to go the FSA CFD webinar. And then we've got a couple of sections here. So the very first one is geometry modeling. And if you click on the actual icon, it'll hyperlink, it'll download a repair geometry. So this is what it'll come out with, right? It's going to be called Module 3. And we've got a couple of things here. So we've got the PDF. If we open the PDF up, right? So this is a part of the ANSYS training course, right? So we'll go over, we've got repairing geometry, and if we step by, we'll understand what our key learning points are, objectives, and it'll ask you to import the geometry in, and it should go through the functions to help you understand what you can do with the software and how it can help you out as well. Right. We'll exit that, and we've got the geometry here as well. After that's done, we'll have a look at the prepare enclosure as well. So again, download, open it up. Module 5, we've got everything will have some sort of PDF attached to it, so you can understand exactly how to actually step through the process. And if we exit that, we've got the geometry sitting there for us as well.